So hear me out. You want to play pickup with your friends, and you get 7 on each side. Little 7v7 on a field in North Carolina. Winner gets $1 million? Well, that basically just happened in Cary, North Carolina. It's called the soccer tournament. This inaugural one had 32 teams playing for $1 million. There's a whole host of cool rules that could have you end up playing 1v1 to win a match, and even the final got all the way down to 5v5 before a winner was crowned. But before we get into that, I know it's called the soccer tournament, but for once, let's lay our weapons down and ignore the word, because it's in the United States. That's the name of the tournament. And if we get lost discussing that, we won't be able to learn about the tournament, will we? It'll ruin the whole thing. Because seriously, it's a cool story. There's no over-exaggeration. Anybody can apply with their team, pay the entry fee, and then if you win the tournament, you get $1 million. But you will be competing against some big names. The money and the notoriety and the media attention the tournament got in the United States attracted sides like Borussia Dortmund, West Ham, #United, Wrexham, Charlotte FC from the MLS sent a team, and Necaxa from Mexico sent a team. And look, I know I said it wrong, but the X, it scares me. These weren't actual teams of first-team players, but they were these weird combinations of like legends, youth academy players, and some coaches that were there to raise club profile and, I don't know, win $1 million. But we might just be getting ahead of ourselves, because how do you come up with this idea to host a random soccer tournament where the winner and just the winner gets $1 million? And you come up with that idea because it already exists in the United States. Leave it to us to come up with that. I've actually watched it on TV a bunch. It's called the basketball tournament. They're very creative with the names. It's the same principle. Non-professional players team up, maybe players that used to be professional or were semi-pro for a while, or they're just out of the league, and you join teams, get put in a big bracket, and then there's only one team left that wins $1 million. Now, 2 dudes were just duding out. Michael Volk and Henry Timbon are their names. They were watching the basketball tournament in 2020. These are 2 guys that used to play soccer at my former university, the University of Virginia, so go Hoos. And they thought to themselves, if this exists for basketball, why not do it for soccer? Pretty simple thought process. Enter John Mugar, or Mugger, one of the 2, the co-founder and CEO of TBT Enterprises. This is the company that runs the basketball tournament. TBT, it's very simple. And when he was approached with the idea to do a soccer version, it fit like a hand on a glove because, well, that's where he got the idea from. You see, the idea for the basketball tournament actually came from the concept of the FA Cup, which is, of course, a soccer tournament in England. Oh, wait. It's a football tournament, lads. It says it right here in this Forbes article. The idea behind TBT, the basketball tournament, was to have a similar feel, and that people with limited experience could compete against players who have played professionally for years. And at the end of the tournament, only one team would earn money. Well, that last part's very not FA Cup. But now in 2014, Mr. Mugger and his partner Dan Friel left their jobs to start this basketball tournament, and now it is carried on ESPN, which is a massive broadcaster of sports in the United States. It's a huge deal. So with their very successful enterprise, they were contacted in 2022 by my fellow Virginia alums to give this soccer thing a try, and as we just talked about, they were game. Just a casual, open-to-all tournament where the winner gets $1 million. There's nothing to it. And they moved quickly. By late 2022, applications opened up for teams to apply to be in the tournament, and they actually flooded in, which I suppose, considering the $1 million, that shouldn't be a huge surprise. And they had some big names attached to them. How about World Cup winner Cesc Fabregas, who brought a side representing his Serie B club Como 1907, which he was also supposed to play for, but then he tweaked his hamstring, so he ended up coaching the team in the tournament. But you could invite anybody, so his team also had NBA legend Steve Nash on it, so why not? Cesc told ESPN, it's really exciting for us, obviously, the first time that we go as a club to the United States to compete, and we're trying to bring the best team we can to do well and try to win, because obviously that's always the final objective, especially when there's $1 million on the line. Or how about Landon Donovan, who joined the group of players called Sneaky Fox FC alongside other former U.S. national team players like Brad Evans. Clint Dempsey only wanted to coach, but he actually put together an entire team through his contacts. I already mentioned most of the actual clubs that brought kind of all-star sides, but Wolverhampton Wanderers was there. Freaking Hapoel Tel Aviv actually got a team in the tournament. A YouTuber created a team and just invited people he could get in touch with. There were teams made up from alums of college soccer programs like Indiana and Duke. And soon, the 32 teams were set. A field of former professionals, semi-pros, current indoor professionals, and just personalities was all set to play for $1 million. And this brings us to what I'd like to call the Format Corner. Take it away, Zealand. Thank you. and welcome. Now we have our teams, but how exactly will they play? Because the tournament is 4 days, and an entire World Cup sort of process has to happen in those 4 days. You already know it's 7v7, but what you don't know is there are two 20-minute halves. And that's not all. At the end of those two 20-minute halves, match is never over, because they do something called target score. Now, the target score is essentially you take the leading team's goal tally, add 1 to it, and the first team to get to that wins. For example, if you win 3-1 over the 40 minutes, then the target score is 4, because that's 1 higher than 3. And that means the first team to get to 4 wins. Obviously, the team that had the lead after the first 40 minutes gets a huge head start, but if the other team happens to score 3 goals, they can win. Ooh, and there's one massive caveat, and that is that every 5 minutes in this extra period, you have to take a player off the field. Which means in our hypothetical 3-1 lead, say nobody scores in the first 5 minutes, you gotta take a player off the field. It's 6v6. Then nobody scores again. 5v5. Then the losing team scores, it's 3-2, but 5 more minutes have gone by. It's only 4v4. And while it sounds strange, the idea ends up working brilliantly because 1, it encourages attacking play, and 2, every match ends on a goal. Every single match is golden goal. When you think about it that way, I kind of want to play in a tournament with these rules. It sounds fun. We don't take sides in the format corner. There's also no offsides, throw-ins or indirect free kicks, and you can't slide tackle. Now you're ready to enjoy the soccer tournament. And with all these crazy rules and a bunch of amateurs, former national team players, current indoor pros, and just random dudes, it quickly became wild. For starters, teams like Borussia Dortmund that on paper you'd see the name and go, well, they should probably win this tournament, started to get found out. Their all-star teams of former has-beens were getting dominated. Their first match was against a team of former players at Indiana, a college soccer program. They lost 4-0. Now, this is relevant for 2 reasons. 1, Dortmund being bad is super interesting, and 2, The Athletic wrote a brilliant piece on this. You can read the whole thing in the description, but their specific description of the team that Indiana brought is one of the best things I've ever read. The team's name is Hoosier Army, by the way. Hoosier Army, on the other hand, is a no-nonsense side of former Indiana University players who look like they drink a lot of milk, eat a lot of red meat, and watch a lot of Leave It to Beaver. Their training regiment feels distinctly American as well. A day earlier, players who missed the mark in the crossbar challenge were forced to drop and do push-ups right then and there. America! And it wasn't just Dortmund. Every side representing a club, except for Hapoel Tel Aviv, was eliminated in the group stage. Clint Dempsey's team was also eliminated in the group stage despite winning their first match. And Clint Dempsey, wearing a wonderful pair of Crocs, what are those? Wasn't happy. He told The Athletic, I don't know whether I want to do it again. I have to reflect on that. It's just hard to get people organized, to find players. It also is just not fun losing 7-1 to a team called Zala FFF. But it wasn't just the big teams falling. There was actual insanity on the field. Remember Noah Beck? We mentioned him earlier. He got punched in the face. You know, big tough challenge. Noah Beck comes over to defend his teammate, and then big Stefan Mijatovic, who is an indoor pro playing for this Newtown Pride team, comes over and just wallops him right in the face. Now, Mijatovic and Noah Beck both got red cards for this, but Noah Beck's was later overturned so he could play in the next match. There was also a decidedly nastier incident where a player on Dallas United was accused of using a racial slur playing against West Ham's team, and after a couple of hours, the administrators agreed with Dallas United that they should just withdraw from the competition, which honestly is the fastest I've ever seen any footballing or soccer organization ever deal with such a thing. But in spite of all of that and a bunch of verbal confrontations between the teams, I mean, they're playing for $1 million, the rolling start times throughout the first couple of days of the tournament enthralled over 35,000 fans. Because you just kind of buy a ticket, wander around, watch the end of one game, wander over to the next game, watch the end of that game. It was an open ground sort of setup. They actually said they were trying to model it after something like going to the early rounds of the US Open, which if you've never been to a tennis tournament, you just kind of walk around and go, huh, look at him hit that ball right there. Gosh golly. And then we got to the business stage of the tournament. Hashtag United in Wrexham made it out of the groups, but lost in the round of 16. Como 1907 under Cesc Fabregas made it to the quarterfinals. Landon Donovan's sneaky Fox FC made it to the semifinals. But by the time we got to the actual final, it was 2 proverbial no-name clubs, which I guess is the point of this whole thing. The first side was unheralded Newtown Pride FC. This is the team that punched Noah Beck. It's a side made up of amateurs that represents a club by the same name in Connecticut that in 2019 won the U.S. Amateur Cup. And the other side was SLC FC, a Canadian outfit made up of players with former MLS and Canadian Premier League experience that had won each of its 3 previous knockout matches by a single golden goal. And those 2 teams would take the field in North Carolina to decide who would get all of $1 million. It was a tense final. There were no goals until 5 minutes to go, and that's when Newtown Pride FC scored, the only goal of regulation. Now, you being somebody that knows the rules, thanks to this guy, you know that means the first team to get to 2 in this extra period will be crowned the champion. And Newtown Pride only took 10 minutes to do it. They found the second goal in a 5v5, and they took home the $1 million. They are a team that was such an underdog that according to The Athletic, they got all the way to the final without knowing how they were going to divide up the money, because some has to go back to the club, each player is going to get a different amount, coaches, whatever. They hadn't worked that out until right before the final. They figured it all out. But when the ball went in the back of the net, the celebrations were wild, and the money, now divvied up, was life-changing. In the tournament, a huge success. NBA legend Chris Paul, who works with the company through his involvement with the basketball tournament, was an immediate fan. He told The Athletic, "To be involved in all of this, it gives me goosebumps. Just look around. What's so cool about the concept and competition is that you can have a team that comes with 50 people, with masseuses, all the bells and whistles. And then you have the team that is wearing the same shirt, but they all have different shorts. I mean, I've seen a man over here playing with a full head of gray hair, and he can still ball." Former U.S. international Jimmy Conrad, whose team made the quarterfinals, thinks the sky is the limit. I think this particular tournament will continue to grow. I think you're going to attract some household names, players, and clubs, so then it's going to go from maybe playing with your buddies to getting super competitive pretty fast when you're putting $1 million on the line. Now, I have no idea where this is headed, but I do know one thing. This concept, the rules, the idea of a bunch of amateurs and indoor pros from Connecticut winning $1 million going up against Dortmund and Wrexham and freaking the U.S. internationals like Landon Donovan is awesome. And I will be watching next year. Maybe someday I'll even be on the winning team, starting at left bench. But I hope you enjoyed this trip into the weird and wonderful world of the soccer tournament, and now you can tell your friends about that opportunity you have to make a quick $1 million. You're in. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe, and as always, all of our sources for this video are linked in the description. Some articles from ESPN and The Athletic in particular do an excellent job of diving into the atmosphere around the tournament. It's tremendously interesting. But if you want to stick around here, you can do that too and keep binge watching. This is a video about a wonder kid who came from nowhere. And you might be wondering how that's true. Well, Google can't find where he came from, so seems pretty legit to me.